Hi everyone, Paul Morbid here of Morbid Team Entertainment. What we're going to do, this video is especially for those who are first starting to get into standard double 8mm filmmaking, low budget filmmaking, experimental, that type of a thing. So you purchase your camera and you need to know how to load the film. So we're going to perform this in this video with the Elmo 8S Zoom Auto Eye. First thing, if you purchase an 8mm standard double 8 with an exposure meter like this, it's more than likely 99% of the time it's going to be bad. So you'll need an exposure meter, handheld. They can be pricey, and if you don't want to get into that, understandable, you can download an app for this, an exposure meter app. Some are free, some cost a little bit of money, and they're generally very inexpensive. Alright, so we're going to flip this around, and you're going to have the film compartment door. It reads open, the arrow turns toward this way. Each camera is a bit different. Pull this up, push it in, turn it. This lid for the compartment film door comes off. Some of them have a hinge. Alright, so what you have here is a supply spindle and a take-up. If you don't have one of these empty spools, you'll need to get one. You can find them online. Okay, you'll also need a spool of daylight film. It's called this because it's on a daylight spool, so the front and back has no holes in it, of course with the exception of the one for the spindle. This is so the film will not get exposed. You can load this film in dim light inside the house, in dim light, or under outside in a shade tree, shaded area. Okay, the back of the film is dark, so just forget about this. Okay, all you need to know is this part of the film right here, the khaki part, goes towards the lens. Okay, because the lens is going to capture your images, come through here, go through what's called the film gate right in here, and it's going to produce images on your film. So remember, this khaki part goes towards the lens. As I have written here, yes, this side to the lens, and it's called the emulsion. This khaki part is called the emulsion. Alright, now this is a test roll that I have. If you're pulling out some film about this length or a little bit more, don't worry. It's going to get exposed anyway because you have to load the camera. Just put it in just like this and make sure it rests firmly down to the bottom of the inside of the film compartment. Okay, this is your pressure plate. This is a pressure plate lock and unlock. Just pull it back. They all operate in a little bit different ways, but they operate essentially the same. Take this and remember, yes, this side to lens, it's the emulsion. So this is going to capture your film, going to capture your images. There are arrows on the bottom of here, as you've probably seen, such as this, just like that. Okay, and you have one at the bottom, as you can see here. This will help you in loading the film. Alright, so just take this, put it right there flat in the film compartment, load this through the film gate. This is known as your film gate, right through here. Okay, just beyond this pressure plate. Bring it around this roller and around here. Okay, so what you can do now is you're going to have an opening in this spool. And you see it right here, this elongated opening. So what you want to do is take the end of this film here, and you want to load it into side 1. See the 1 there? You have a 1 up here as well. You can see that, okay? And just load it right in there. So we'll do it like this. And we're going to roll it around just a bit to make sure it's securely in there. Alright, so that's good. Just like so. It's really easy to do. You want to make sure this film is seated properly. So far it's not. So just move it around in here. You can pull a little bit more back. Don't worry about this. Okay? And get it loaded properly in there. Because in a moment you're going to take this pressure plate and put it up towards there. There is a claw in between here that's going to pull everything along on these perforations that you've seen. Okay? And there's a reason why those perforations are on the double side of each film. Alright, so we're going to get this loaded in here, and you also want to make sure that the film on the supply and on the take-up have some play in it. So just look at the arrows. Kind of match the film up with these arrows right here. Because if the film is too tight on each side, it's going to cause stabilization issues. This means after you get your film processed, it's going to be jumping. So make sure I got that seated down in there. Make sure I got some play on the top and bottom, supply and take up. And once I do, hold it down a bit. Take the pressure plate lock and push it forward. And you heard the click. And you can see I've got play here and play there. Okay? Now once you load this, you do not want to open the film compartment door again. Alright? So just go ahead and put that on there. And you may be thinking that you can pay attention to this exposure meter diagram, but you're just forget about this, because it's from the early days of film. Okay? And the film stock in those days, the ASA, ISO, means the same thing, is different than it is today. So just forget about this. Today this is only for cosmetic purposes. Okay, so you've got your film loaded, you've got the door locked, don't open it again. Now you need to turn the camera over. This dial is your frames per second dial. This is your speed, FPS. You can choose whichever you want. You don't want to operate this camera over 24 frames per second with no film inside. It can damage the motor, as well as the claw. 24 frames per second is if you have someone walking, kind of jogging. Okay? Something like that. Birds flying around, that type of a thing. 48 is for slow motion. You're going to use up a lot of film on this speed. This is your footage counter. This tells us how much film is being used. Now for this spool, it takes 40 ISO ASA. You can get this online. You can still get it from Kodak. Okay? This is really about the best this camera is going to take. This is your winding key. This particular camera takes no batteries. However, very few do. Alright? So keep in mind this camera has a spring motor inside and you don't want to break it. It's really old. Wind it essentially 20 times. You'll feel it getting really tight, and that's it. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That is healthy enough. Okay? So next, this is your shutter button, your filming button. And again, also remember, this is not a digital camera, this is film. So again, do not open the camera door for the film, or you're going to expose all your film. Alright? So now, with your exposure meter, or your exposure meter app, you can go ahead and set the exposure for your film. Okay? Is what you can do. So, next, I'm going to turn this around, and the shutter button right here, we're going to go ahead and press that, and let's pretend we're going to film. You're going to wind this essentially 3 times, maybe wind it again 10 times for 4. But 3 times is good enough until the entire one side of the spool of film is used. You may end up with a lot of film to your liking or unliking, but remember, it makes no difference because you're going to have to use that amount of film to load the film again, and we'll get into that in a moment. So here we go, pressing the shutter button, and as I do this, take a look at the film counter by my thumb and you'll see it move. See that? And this is going to take a while, so here we go. Okay, so now you see we've stopped. That's 3 winds here. If you want to go ahead and wind it up another 20 winds for a 4th time, then go ahead and do that. It's great to have a practice spool of film to do that. Remember also, send this camera, the camera that you get, before you film with it, to a service technician for a CLE. That stands for clean, lubed, and adjustment. Otherwise, you can end up wasting your entire roll of film. Okay, so here at the footage counter, we have it at S for stop. Going to turn it over. Here's the film compartment door, open. Arrow points down, flip this up, push it in, remove that out of the way. We'll look at the back here. As you can see, the supply is empty for side 1, and the take-up is full. It's on the dark side right there, and the part of the film going through the gate, you can see the khaki colored emulsion. So we've got that emulsion right there. I'm going to turn it right here. This is when you have the side 1 on each spool. Going to open this up, the film gate, lock it. You can remove this. It's just going to fall off anyway. Okay, or pull it out. Now, you're doing this in the dim light under a shade tree. Pull this up. Take this spool and you're going to flip it over. So just for some education here, the reason you're doing this is because you've only used one side of this film. That's where there are claw holes. It's perforated on each side. So this line right here I've drawn, you've only used one side of it. You're filming on one side and then the other. Meaning, because you have side 1 right here, now since you've used side 1 for filming, you're going to turn this over just like this. Now you're on side 2 of the film. Bring this up, put it in the supply spindle. Okay, just lock that in there. Take that film, remember the emulsion is the khaki side, and just run this straight through. Right through the film gate. Okay? Pull some extra out. I'm going to take this one, this daylight spool. Remember my thumb, it has side 1. I'm going to turn it over for side 2, as you see by my thumb. Look for that opening. There it is. Right there, by the end of my pencil eraser. So I'm going to load this in here. Did it catch that? Come on. There we are. And I'm going to push it in there until it stops. Now I'm going to wind this. Hold on to it and wind it until I get around just like that. Don't worry about it. And also, depending on what type of movie you're making, this exposed part of the film is going to leave what's called some film burn. It's going to look really wild. Seat both of these on here properly. They seat all the way down to the film compartment. Alright. So, get this work down in here. Where the film is under there. You see here on this camera these 2 silver bars coming out? This film has got to fit under that. Just like so. Get yourself some play in the film and push in the pressure plate lock. Okay, there you go. Got some play there. Essentially matching up with the arrows. And now we're ready to put back on the film compartment door. Push in, turn, and put it there. Turn it back around. We're going to repeat the same process. 20 winds. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You're going to feel it get tight. You could wind it more, but it's best not to. You could snap that spring. Then you got a problem. Because again, then you need another working motor from the same model. Depending on what kind of camera you have, it can be very expensive to get one for parts, or almost impossible. Alright, now the shutter button right here. You can call it the filming button. Use your app meter for exposure, or your handheld meter. Keep your eye on the footage, the frames per second. Again, we have it set at 24 frames per second. And start filming. Pressing the shutter button with my thumb. And we can see the counter moving. This is good news. Okay, now I've came down to my third wind right here. If you want to do it a 4th time, go ahead and do it. Another 20 winds for the 4th time. But just take a look at your counter right here. I've got S for stop. And you're also going to learn to feel the camera and hear it when the spool has ended. Alright, so you've ended on side 2, which means you've used up all your film. Now in a shaded area, pull this up, open the film compartment door, okay, and take a look again. Right here, you'll see the supply spool has ended, the take up is full, it's the dark side of the film, that's good. On that daylight spool, it means it won't get exposed, and here's the emulsion, facing the lens, okay? pressure plate lock, pull it back, lock it. The supply spool, just remove it, pull that out just like so. Okay, you can drop that back in there, put it on side 1 rather, and now this one we're going to pull it straight out. And as you can see, yes, this side to the lens, the emulsion, it doesn't make a difference again if you stretch this part of the film out. It's going to be exposed, but once you get it processed, it's going to give you a beautiful orange film burn. Now you can take this spool, put a rubber band around it, and put it back in the box that your film came in, and send it off to where you purchased the film, hopefully for processing. There are different places in the world where you can get this film processed. Okay? You can push that back down. Put your film compartment door back on. Close it. And a good thing to do, as a reminder, is to press this shutter button and make sure there are no more lines on it. See, I got some more. Because you don't want that old spring motor to be packed away with spring winds on it. It can damage it. Okay? On this one I've got a lock right here in the red. Your camera usually does. That way, if your camera gets bumped, the shutter button is not going to waste any film. Alright, so everyone, that's essentially it. Remember, can't express to you enough, when you get this camera in, whichever one you purchase, send it off to a service technician for a CLA, a clean, lubed, and adjustment. Otherwise, the film could hang up inside, you could have mechanical difficulties, and it's just going to cost you some film. Alright? Do contact me at the social media outlets provided on the screen, and remember, as always, do subscribe. Until next time, later.